Welcome to the Tell Our Stories podcast. I'm Perry Chris.
And I'm Steph Bender. On today's episode, we had the opportunity to speak with Frank Bright, the founder of Lifetime Running.
Lifetime Running has been a group made up of runners over the age of 75. And these are not just runners who do your neighborhood Thanksgiving 5Ks.
Lifetime Running has strict standards. Everyone in the group is a veteran of multiple marathons, connecting over their shared participation in the Boston Marathon.
Join us to hear about the advent of the group, how they support each other, and what it means to be able to continue to do this at their age.
So lace up those shoes and run on into today's episode of the Tell Our Stories podcast. Well, Frank, can you start by introducing yourself?
Yes, I'm Frank Bright. I live in Shreveport, Louisiana.
All right, great. And how long have you been a part of this, the Lifetime Running group?
Well, I actually organized it in 2020 during the COVID lockdown. When I went into the 75 to 79 Boston Marathon age group, I thought about trying to get some communication with the other members of that group because it had gotten to a manageable size. It was not too large.
Yeah.
But that would have been in 2018, and I didn't do anything about it. So when we were locked down with COVID in 2020, I decided to go online. I took the Boston Marathon entry list, which had names in recent hometowns. And I went on the internet and started searching for the guys on the list.
So you did all the legwork for this
Yeah.
thing.
And within about a month, there were roughly 30 of us that were willing to be on an email group together.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So is this a nationwide group? Is there any sort of regional focus or?
No, it's international, actually.
Oh, wow.
We've got a guy in Melbourne, Australia. Oh, we've got 2 or 3 guys in Australia, actually. One in England, several in Canada.
That's tremendous.
And so how often do you guys stay in communication? What's that format look like?
Some days there's a flurry and other days nothing. It just depends on what people have on their mind.
So you said that it got to about 30 pretty quickly. What's the membership at now?
Probably 70 plus.
Wow. And is it what's the age bracket that the group looks to focus on?
Well, I didn't think it through, and as I said, I went to the age group for the people on the 75 to 79 age group. And after a year or two passed by, one of the guys said, "Well, am I aged out? I'm 80 now. Am I kicked out of the club?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't think so." So just maybe to give you a little bit shorter answer, we're now 75 plus.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I take the Boston entry list. The Boston Athletic Association is very careful with privacy, so they wouldn't share anything. But as I said, with the names and recent hometowns, I'm able to track down quite a few of the guys. So I take the list every year now. I haven't been as diligent in more recent years as I was at the very beginning. And now if I have trouble finding somebody, I don't stay with it as long as I did before. But I get some every year that want to join and communicate. Obviously, we've got a lot in common. We're old. We're basically Boston Marathon runners. We've expanded that a little bit, and I'll mention it. I'll leave out people and I may get in trouble for that. But a couple of guys have been really, really helpful. Former Boston Marathon winners.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I had gotten to know Jack Fultz about 10 years ago, and Jack won it in 1976 when the temperature went to 90 plus degrees.
Oh my goodness.
And maybe an interesting story. Turns out two of his nephews live here in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh, great.
His older brother's sons. And one day I was at the Downtown Y where I go and meet guys to run. And Daryl Fultz says, Frank, I heard you were running the Boston Marathon. This was 10 years ago or whatever. I said, yeah. And he said, my Uncle Jack won the Boston Marathon. I said, yeah, Daryl, right. Your Uncle Jack won the Boston. Well, turns out, because I didn't know Jack Fultz's name at that time. So shorten it a little bit. Daryl put me in touch with Jack. So the next time I went up to run the marathon, had coffee with Jack, and then over the years got to know him pretty well. So when I had this idea to try to get a group together to communicate, well, Jack was very helpful and helped me get that going. And that Jack led me to a guy named Amby Burfoot, who was editor of Runner's World for 20 years. Amby won the Boston Marathon when he was in college. And Amby's written books, and he's very much in touch.
Real deal.
Yeah, he's in touch with a lot of people in the older running community. So between Jack and Amby, I get it backwards, but I think Jack does they're the tech guys for me. Not only they're former Boston Marathon winners, they're technically savvy. And as you saw, I had to have my wife to get me set up to do this. So Amby does the Google group.
Okay.
Takes care of that. And Jack takes care of our spreadsheet. We ask everybody to tell us, well, contact information, of course, and then very information. When did you run your first marathon?
Sure.
Just stuff like that. So we have a spreadsheet that you can go to and see what there is there about some of the guys. So Amby and Jack have been very helpful in keeping the thing loosely organized anyway.
Sure.
It sounds like you have a great team to help your international team members.
Absolutely.
Question about your runners. Are they a lot of lifetime long runners, or how did they come about running into the Boston Marathon?
That was one of the surprises for me as to how many of these guys didn't start running marathons until they were in their 50s or 60s.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ran my first one. We didn't have marathons down here in the South, I guess, because of the weather, until the 70s, mid 70s. So I ran my first marathon. I guess I was 35 years old, something like that, in 1977 or 78. So I started at 35, and I just assume everybody else started. And people like Amby and Jack, they started younger because they were up in that area. Jack went to Georgetown, and Amby went to Wesleyan. So they were in the running area, and they started early. But a surprising number of the guys didn't start till much, much later.
I love that.
Yeah. So is this group, is there any sort of qualification with you? Is there a distance, like you have to be, this is not a 5K group, this is a serious distance group?
Pretty much marathoners. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I started out with just people off of the Boston Marathon entry list. And then we kind of got a little looser, particularly with Amby and Jack, knowing guys that had run Boston earlier many times, but it gotten to where they weren't running that, but were doing maybe ultra running and writing books. And so it's a little looser now than it started out, that if you weren't on the Boston Marathon entry list, you weren't contacted.
Sure.
But it's a little more open than that now. And some of the guys have gotten that were running Boston when we put them on the list have gotten to the age where they haven't had to give it up, but they're still part of the conversation.
Mm.
What are people's reactions to you saying that you've run the Boston Marathon and that you have a group of people from around the world who also do at your age, which is an incredible thing?
Yeah.
You mean when I contact somebody about joining our group, or just in general?
Or just, I mean, I'm sure you're passing people, our age as you're running. I mean, is there any sort of surprise, I assume?
Uh, that's hard to say. Locally, of course, people kind of put me on a pedestal, which I
Yeah.
love. What the heck? But yeah, there are a lot of good things about being old and still able to run.
Sure. So knowing that this group is sort of came to be around the Boston Marathon and you guys are from all over the world, is there any sort of like in-person meetup during the Boston Marathon to be able to sort of connect as a group in person?
Yes, actually, we for maybe 4 years now. Let's see, 2020 was the first time. So I guess each year we've had dinner at Legal Seafood in Boston after the marathon, and we'll have marathon runners, their families, and so we'll have a big group, and we've done that each year. So that's one meetup. We also, as you probably know, the marathons run on Monday. Patriots Day is the third Monday in April is Patriots Day, which they celebrate in that part of the world. And so on Monday night, we have the dinner at Legal Seafood. On Sunday, the day before the race, we try to meet at the finish line at noon. And usually some of the guys in the group, Bill Rogers is in the group. He won Boston and New York and is a big name for the older runners. Everybody knows who Bill Rogers was. And he's part of the group. So Bill and Amby and Jack are usually on a panel of some kind of legends panel up there near the finish line in an outdoor plaza. So we use that as kind of a meeting place for our group. We go and listen to Amby and Jack and Bill Rogers and Gene Dykes and these guys that are kind of celebrities. And then we get together and visit a little bit then. So those are the two meetups that we do in Boston officially. But and this has been an interesting thing and a gratifying thing to me is that these guys, you can post something on our email group and you just type in the forum and it goes to everybody. And then if you want to respond, that goes to everybody. So, but we get a lot of communication back and forth between a couple of people, or there may be three or four. If somebody posts something that is interesting to maybe a narrower group, well, then they'll get offline and communicate by email back and forth. They'll physically meet up. There's a guy that has a house in Colorado and one in Florida, and he and his wife drive through Shreveport every year twice, once going to Florida and once going back to Colorado, and they'll stop in and have dinner with us. And that happens anytime one of us is in some other part of the U.S., particularly where they know there's some guys there. Well, they'll get together. So there's been a good bit of interaction between the older runners. And before, I would go up to Boston, I would not know one runner in the age group, and other than local runners, but nobody in my age group. And I'm fairly social, and so I felt for years it'd be kind of fun to know some of the other guys. Well,
absolutely.
Now it's happened, and it's I thought when I started out on this venture that it would be an interesting group of guys, and it really we have two nuclear physicists.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Out of 70 people, we turn out with two nuclear physicists.
How about that?
Now, and I say good group of guys, and we've not. I didn't go to the women's list. Actually, Amby, knowing so many people as he does, he's gotten a women's group similar to this going. Or he got a
That's awesome.
He talked to some women and that thought that it would be a nice idea to have a similar group for the women.
Yeah.
And so that is coming along as well, I think.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's incredible.
What does it mean to you to be able to have this community over this common interest?
Well, as I've said in recent months or years, that it's a place where you can brag about a good race or a good workout. You can whine about a bad race or a bad workout, and nobody thinks you're a jerk.
There you go. Everybody needs a place to brag and a place to complain.
Safe space.
Yeah. And you just, and I'm sort of serious. You can't do that just
No, yeah.
Sure.
even with some friends, they say, oh, you're a
They
jerk.
just don't get it like them. Yeah.
Yeah. But these guys do. We've all been around the block. We've had injuries. We've had bad races. We've had good races. And so it's just a nice place to communicate.
That's great. For my own personal curiosity, Frank, how many marathons have you yourself completed?
70.
Woof.
They're gonna say 7.
That is a high number.
Yeah, but they're guys that have run guys that have run one in every state, and sometimes more than that. So that's probably an average number. If you start looking around, there's some people that have run quite a few.
Sure.
I have to ask, what's the secret to continuing this hobby and doing all these marathons?
Well, I have a slight frame, and so that's helpful, I guess. I'm not heavy,
Anatomically.
not pounding, right? And I guess good genes. I say that my dad drank whiskey and smoked and lived for 80 years, so I surely should live. And I've made 80 now, but I figure if he made it the way he treated himself, I surely should make 80. And so I have. But yeah, you need to have good genes and make some good choices. I never smoked and never used alcohol to mount to anything. So, and this marathon deal, my wife has been so supportive. She's a real fan. She comes to all the marathons. She figures out how to see me as many times as she can. Boston is the worst in that regard because it's a point-to-point race. It starts out at Hopkinton and it comes into town. Well, the only thing you can do is ride the subway out on the route, and it's just slammed with people. And
chaos.
The Boston Red Sox play a game on Patriots Day that starts at 10 a.m. and the baseball people are on the subway, and so she can only see me about twice at Boston. Now, New York, I've run that a couple of times. Is much better. The public transit, they can handle the crowds better. The course is laid out such that she can see me more times. And so some marathons are easier for her than others, but she works really hard on trying to be there to cheer me on as many times as she can. And so that's been a big help. If she weren't supportive, particularly back when we had young kids and I'm out running and spending all that time, the fact that she was supported made it doable.
That's amazing. So what would you have any advice to somebody who's, let's say, late 50s, early 60s, who's thinking about starting running long distances?
Well, fortunately, there are lots of races all over nowadays. And you can start out running 5K, then 10K, and then there are a lot of half marathons now. And
Mhm.
so you can just see how it goes. Even with all the experience that I have and all the experience that my contemporaries have, we screw up and get injured from time
Sure.
to time. And people that are just starting out are really vulnerable to doing too much too soon. And it's so hard to
Mhm.
know. It's so hard to know what you can do. So avoiding injury is one big thing.
Sure.
But and depending on where you live and the weather, how hard it is to train, different people have different things to deal with.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's a good thing that there's so many races out there for somebody to start stepping up from 5K to 10K to half marathon, and then try the marathon. So
Mhm. Good progression.
Yeah.
yeah.
Last thing for you, if there's somebody out there who is, who fits the criteria, who is over 70 and enjoys a good 26-mile run, but they're not part of the group, how should they get connected to you?
Well, 75 is where we
Oh,
have
sorry. Yes.
kind of drawn the line. Uh, you know, and boy, I hate to sound elitist or uh, uh, but we have tried to keep it small enough
Sure.
because when you're emailing, in these times in our country, we've got so many people on totally different ends of the political spectrum, for instance, that you don't we don't want to get political in this thing. We want to stick
Right.
to, there's plenty that we can share that has to do with running and
Mhm.
training and injuries and shoes and watches and so forth. So we've tried to keep it to people that are really serious about long distance running,
Sure.
and kind of use the Boston Marathon as a filter there.
Okay.
So that's you're reading between the lines, but that's kind of what
No,
we
it's
tried to
a
do.
high-ranking group. Yeah.
No, you guys
Well,
worked hard. I think.
You've
well,
earned it.
Yeah.
well, and like I said, Jack and Amby have introduced us to some people that don't
Yeah.
exactly fit that, but yet they do. Bernd Heinrich wrote a book called Why We Run, and he's kind of a legend. And I think he's 85, and
Wow.
he hasn't run Boston in a long time, and I don't know how many times he ran it, but he's in our group because he's just got some really good
Yeah.
credentials.
How can you not? Right.
Right. And that's kind of my answer.
Well, I've got a question going off his book title. Why do you run? Why do you continue to run? What does running mean to you, Frank?
Well, the fact that I can still do it makes me feel like, well, I should. Why? What would be a good reason to stop?
Yeah.
And I can't think of any now, other than sometimes you don't want to go out and run a 20-mile run.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at it that way. Why should I stop?
Mhm. If you can, you should.
That's lovely.
I mean, it lets me have a horrible diet and not gain weight.
Okay, that's number one reason.
People have asked me, well, you must have a really serious, strict diet to do all that. I said, no, I run so that I can eat anything
Right.
that I want
Yep.
and don't gain weight. So that's good. I sleep well at night because, you train, you get tired,
Yeah.
and you sleep well. And as I've gotten to the age where there are not that many guys my age that can keep up with me, then
Yeah.
you kind of get a little celebrity. So
Carry the banner. Yeah.
yeah, so that kind of, I guess everybody's got a little bit of ego. So that's part of it, is
Yeah.
bringing home the medals.
Yeah.
So,
You deserve it, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've worked incredibly hard, and it's amazing what you've built.
Yeah.
thank you. It's been very gratifying to get this group together, and to where we can share what we're feeling about our running.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for taking the time. It's been fantastic to get to hear all about this. It's an absolutely unbelievable thing you guys are all doing.
Well, I appreciate you doing it. We Amby, and particularly, is big on lifetime running. In fact, he wrote a book, Run Forever, and
There you go.
Okay.
and he's worked hard with the Boston Marathon on trying to get them to cut a little slack to the older runners. There aren't that many that qualify now
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
because and the standards are so arbitrary,
Right.
and so we are
Yeah.
lobbying to try to get Boston to let more older runners in
Yeah. Absolutely.
and change their qualifying standards. So, and like I say, Amby is just generally interested in keeping people active and fit longer. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
distance running is one way to do it. Swimming, whatever, pickleball, whatever. Just
Yeah. Whatever. Whatever.
stay active,
does it
because
for you.
the more you do, the better off you're going to be. And so we appreciate what you're doing, making people aware of what older people can do and should do. Really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Frank.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye.
You're incredible. Bye, Frank.
Bye now.
We want to extend another thank you to Frank for joining us to share the story of the Lifetime Running Group. We wish him and all the other members luck in their future races.
If you want to learn more about Lifetime Running, you can find them online at lifetimerunning.net.
As always, you can hear more from us at Tell Our Stories on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, or at TOS Senior Care on X and LinkedIn.
And if you want to share a story with us, send us an email at info@tellourstories.com.
Thank you for tuning in.